In episode 26, I introduced you to Suzanne and Robert Mays, who shared some of what they've learned over their 40-plus years of researching near-death experiences. Tonight, we continue that theme. When you read stories of people who have had NDEs, many ask themselves, why am I still here? Some quickly discover new psychic abilities that add to their greater sense of purpose, while others need time to process what happened and physically heal from the event. But eventually, some of them too realize their higher calling. In just a few minutes, you'll meet one such woman. Welcome to the Peep Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Maroc, and on this episode, we're talking to Betsy Lambert about her journey from near-death experiencer to energy healer. But first, I can't let this one pass without a huge shout-out to some very important people. October 7th was the Peep Podcast first anniversary. I could not have made it a year without many wonderful guests who offered their time, expertise, and personal stories for the show. I have been blessed with very supportive people in my life, some podcasting mentors and others, friends and family who encouraged me to keep moving forward. And I also couldn't have done it without listeners. Well, technically I could have, but what would be the point? Thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart. Now back to tonight's topic. I do want to note that there was some strange feedback happening during the recording of this interview. I removed what I could, but I'll admit the audio quality isn't up to my usual standards. Please bear with it because the discussion is worth listening to. Betsy Lambert is an Amazon International best-selling author for her story in the anthology Women Living on Purpose, released in July 2021, in which she shares her miraculous near-death experience. She has been an energy healer since 1998, when she received her Reiki 1 and 2 attunements. Over the next few years, she learned chakra balancing and reconnection techniques, and successfully added them to her long-distance alternative healing practice. In 2009, she added quantum touch and became a certified practitioner because she found it to be such an effective way to alleviate discomfort and realign bones. The following year, she earned her quantum touch instructor certification and briefly taught quantum touch level 1 workshops. Betsy began using the emotion code in 2011 because she found that many of her clients had emotional blockages that she couldn't clear using quantum touch techniques. She became a certified emotion code practitioner in 2012 and in 2016 achieved advanced certification in the body code, which incorporates the emotion code as one of its supporting techniques. She now uses the body code to facilitate virtually all her clients' healing and balancing. Now, if you haven't heard of any of these energy healing modalities, you're not alone, and I think you're really going to appreciate this conversation. Let's dive in with Betsy. Hi, Betsy. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Wonderful. We are going to talk about your healing energy business shortly. But before we get into that, I would really love to know and understand exactly how you got started on this path toward energy healing.
Well, I got started it was purely literally by accident because I was in 1993, I was in Charlotte and driving on a Monday night. And it turned out to be, it was on November 22nd, 1993. And I was going to the Y after work. And I took a different route than I normally take because I was going to take something back to Kmart, and I was driving along, and there was a curve ahead of me, and all of a sudden I had a voice. I mean, it was really, it was wild. It was a voice said, "You are completely at peace." And it sounded like the voice was right there with me. I mean, it was in the car with me, and I was by myself, of course. I was going about 35. And I just, immediately, where did that come from was my first thought. And then I went completely limp. I mean, I started at my toes, and it went up to my, to my head, uh, completely paralyzed. I mean, I couldn't move I couldn't even put my foot on the brake the next minute when I saw this car come around the curve and it was on my side of the road. And I just sort of watched it, and it was just really very detached. Isn't that interesting? Because there was nothing I could do. I was like a, rag doll. But, I know that that's really what saved my life, because the driver was drunk, and she was weaving back and forth. And then, of course, she ended up ramming into me driver's side to driver's side, going about more than 50 miles an hour, and I was going 35. So that's pretty much not a survivable impact normally, but I was in a van and she was in a little bitty car. So she just pushed the engine against me and trapped, and my car spun around. She was killed instantly, unfortunately, but I was spun around and backed off the side of the road. But because it was all mashed in there, took the medics about an hour and a half. Jaws of life had to pry the car off of me, and meanwhile I had snapped my right wrist in two, and I couldn't move either leg, so the pain was really quite intense. And I didn't know if I still even had legs. I couldn't tell, because there was nothing I could move down there until they pulled the engine block off of my legs. And then it was such a relief when when the EMT pulled each leg out, and then I could move my ankle. I was like, yay. But they were quite severely lacerated, all up and down, many, many stitches. But nothing, the only thing broken was my whole wrist, my whole right wrist, because but I had to have surgery in both of my knees to kind of put things back together and clean them out and everything. And that took me about a year to learn how to walk again. And after that, because I just, my particularly my left leg sort of atrophied, and it forgot what it was supposed to do. And I after, I just was determined I was gonna get better and gonna get there and regain use, and had to, lots of physical therapy on my right wrist to get it working again. And it was a rough year, but within about 2 or 3 years, my left leg had just never quite gotten well. And I was on a cane, and I was only 48 years old and too young to be on a cane. Yeah. And I did not want to go back to the doctor. He offered to do some more surgery. I said, no, that's not going to happen. So a friend, I was practicing Tai Chi at the time, and they said, oh, we've got a great acupuncturist in Charlotte. So I went, okay. So I went and saw him, and for the first time in my life, I experienced chi energy. I had never really thought about it or heard about it before, and it was a real revelation. And we worked together for 4 or 5 years before we finally got to the point that I could walk fairly normally again. And then a couple of years after that, I got exposed to Reiki. And then I found I was attuned in Reiki, and that would have been 1998. And that was a fabulous experience, and I loved that. But I was still working. I was in the corporate world, and I continued working until I retired in 2007. But in the meantime, I tried different healing modalities, and all the time, gradually understanding energy healing better, and expanding my capabilities, etc. And in, I guess it was about 2008, I discovered quantum touch, which is a wonderful modality, but it's hands-on. It's more of a hands-on. It targeted like Reiki on steroids, and it'll heal bones. And I can do it remotely and all that. And but then I even became an instructor. But then I discovered the emotion code, and I read the book by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and that was wonderful, and that was a real turning point for me, because I could do it all long distance over the phone, and the emotion code. I just found out that its modality, its entire focus is on uncovering the subconscious emotional blockages that are often the root causes of preventing people from healing themselves. Because I can't heal anybody but myself, I can merely facilitate other people's healings. And the emotion code was just such a remarkable. It just opened up a whole new world for me, because of course energy can be measured. It's actually, electrocardiogram, for heart,
Mm-hmm.
the electroencephalogram for the brain. But really, every part of the body has its own little energy field, and when you're working with energy, you can do a lot more when you understand it, and you can give energy and then receive it and take it out and do anything. But energy, the thing that I really liked about the emotion code is that energy can get stored in the body from past experiences, injuries, emotions, thoughts, and so much more. These trapped energies then interact constantly with a certain part of your body where they are stuck. Like they can get stuck in your liver, they can get stuck in your stomach, they can get stuck in muscles, they can get stuck in your aura, even anywhere. And this can interfere with the natural frequency that exists in your body. And in our business, we call it body intelligence, because your body knows exactly what it needs in order to be healed, in order to be healthy, and if it has, it's kind of like, a stream is flowing, and if it gets dammed up, the water gets backed up behind the dam, and it pushes against the dam, and it creates inflammation, and so what this energy does is what this modality does is that it breaks that it pulls out the emotion, and energetically at the seventh chakra is the way I pull it out using a magnet, and then the stream of the energy can flow naturally, and then with the stream of energy comes blood, and with blood comes everything that the blood can do to heal problems, and so it's just a really natural way to heal. It really is. And anything that disrupts this built-in capability in our body, that like the dam, can result in a physical discomfort or mental stress. And the emotion code and body code simply connect with the client's spirit to determine what is trapped and where before releasing that negative energy. Sometimes we can determine even when the trauma occurred, including in past lives, which is really the very interesting part. I routinely find traumas that happen 5 and 6 and 7 generations before, in a maternal grandfather or maternal or paternal grandmother or something like that. And we can find out exactly which emotions that paternal grandparent trapped. And then it was transmitted in energetic DNA, just like regular DNA, to this person. And when when we locate it, we release that energy from not only the person who the client that I'm working with, but also with the original grandparent, if you will, and all of his or her progeny. And let's just everybody that anybody who got that DNA, we get rid of it. And I've actually had this proven. I was working with a client, and we worked on her hearing because it turned out it was from several generations before. And she saw her brother the next week, and the first thing he said was, "Gosh, the funniest thing happened last Tuesday night," which was when I worked on her. I all of a sudden I could hear better. He said, what happened? Did you have the same experience?" And she smiled and said, "Well, yeah, I did." And I've had that. And then, I mean, it's to me, it's like working. It's like being a time traveler. I really enjoy doing that sort of work, and it's just I don't know. It's just exciting to work with people.
That is so amazing. Wow, I did not expect the generational thing to come up in this. So this is wonderful. Um, I guess the first thing that I would ask is, with the emotion code, you're releasing emotions that have been trapped. Are there any particular emotions that you find people have more difficulty letting go of, or does there seem to be a common theme among your clients, or is it just like every negative emotion?
Oh no, there's a very common theme. The interesting thing is that the clients don't have to get rid of anything, because that's my job. The art of doing what I do, because first of all, the difference between the emotion code and the body code locates where the imbalance is, where in other words, somebody says their stomach is hurting or something like that, or they have digestive problems. The body code identifies which different organs and which different parts of the body are imbalanced. And then I bring in the emotion code to find out what the emotions are that are causing that imbalance. And the one thing that the emotion code is a chart, and it has two columns. It has like 6 rows on one side, 6 rows and 2 columns, and each row it corresponds to a different channel of the a meridian channel. And like, for instance, the row 1 is heart and small intestine, and there are 10 emotions on that row. And then the next one is spleen or stomach, and the 10 emotions on there, and then lung or colon, and liver and gallbladder, and kidneys or bladder. And then the row 6 is glands and sexual organs. And what I found is that the most common emotions that literally everybody has, everywhere in their body, I found, are lack of control and low self-esteem from either the spleen or the stomach. The next most common ones are indecisiveness and taken for granted from either the liver or the gallbladder. And then another very, very common one is unworthy and worthless and overwhelmed and that type of thing. And those are from glands, any of the glands. And as a matter of fact, those are so common that I even have them. They're automatic on my computer. I can just push a couple of keys and they come up, because everybody says this sounds like a broken record. And it kind of is, because those are the things that we have most commonly, and we get them really in childhood a lot of times. And we also get different ideas about ourselves, like I'm no good, or I can't love anybody, or different things like that. It's just amazing the things that we get that we have instilled in us when we're very young, and then and that's just the way it is. Well, I find those, because I actually have a chart that tells me, different things that we tell ourselves, the negative thought patterns, and I can pull those out as well. So it's just a really a wonderful way to get rid of emotional things without having to relive it or pull it out yourself, which is the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah, so I can see how that would be very easy for one of your clients to come in and tell you, well, what do they tell you? Do they come in and say my stomach hurts, or do they come in and say I know I'm having issues, can you help me pinpoint the issue?
Right. Well, when I have a session with a client, the most important thing to know is what their intent is, because their intent is completely sacred as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter what their intent is. If it's I want to lose weight, yes, that's fine. If it's I have digestive problems, or I have my knee hurts, or my shoulder hurts, or I have headaches, or I don't sleep well, it doesn't matter. It's whatever their intent is. That is what we want to work on. And then it's up to me, with my 10 years of experience, having done this for about 10 years, is that I have to come up with the right question. I have to figure out, from what they've told me, from what that their discomfort is, and I have to figure out, okay, what exactly what exactly do you do, what is the contributing discomfort that is making you have this intent? In other words, you can have an intent and it's causing some discomfort in your body, in yourself, or in how you live, or something. Like I have one client, and her intent was to raise her self-esteem. That was her main thing. And so I, by questioning her, it's an intuitive questioning process. I find that she has a sugar carb addiction when she's stressed, and she's had poor communication. Well, so that becomes my question. And I say, okay, is there an imbalance related to your sugar carb addiction when stressed and poor communication? And then I find out where she where it's hurting, where she has a problem. And in this case, it turns out she had an idea allergy it was an allergy to the idea of changing unhealthy dynamics, so then we find out what the allergy was, and that was the allergy. And then I find out what the imbalances were that caused that. Like, for instance, she had a pancreas imbalance, a thyroid gland imbalance, a parathyroid gland imbalance, mostly glandular imbalances. Until we finally get down to the bottom, and then I released that idea allergy and I installed a new one, that it's okay to and important to change unhealthy dynamics. And she's been with me for quite some time, and we keep finding these little things like that. Another one was she had a physical emotional shock at age 8, and then I mean, I could just go on and on. Let's see, this one was get rid of facial pain and anxiety. Now, the way I teased the question out, it's sort of an art, is that I came up with, all right, she had pain in her upper right jaw and trigeminal neuralgia. She told me that. She said, well, I know I have trigeminal neuralgia. Well, I haven't a clue what that is. I don't have to know. But I found all sorts of imbalances in her stomach, and her spleen, and her liver, and her bladder, and her pituitary gland, and then right palatine facial bone, and right zygomatic facial bone, that type of thing. So that's how it works. And it's just really, it's pretty remarkable process.
Wow. When you're doing this, how do you determine whether it's something that is generational versus something that is just in their one lifetime that's causing the problem?
Well, that's where my medical, I'm a medical intuitive. I have become a medical intuitive, and that's where that comes in, because, well, I can tell from, I have a chart that's actually, I mean, it's actually a program on my computer the body code program, and it takes me through it, and I use a pendulum. That's how I can communicate with someone's spirit. The name of my business is the Astral Connection, and I'm communicating directly with their astral body. I've found that the astral body is where everybody communicates universally. You communicate with animals, you communicate with with the universe, with other people, and that's how when somebody walks into the room and they have they're very negative. Man, you can feel that wave of negativity. Anybody can. I can feel when I'm driving, I can feel that wave of negativity hit me from behind. When a driver comes up behind me with road rage, it's like, and then I pull over, let that person around because I don't want to be around them. But I can feel it. It's a physical feeling, and it's. But I've learned how to tap into that, and just with experience of working with hundreds of sessions and hundreds of clients over the years, I've learned that I've learned how to trust my intuition, and like I'll get an intuitive feeling that is. And I get numbers. That's what I get. Is like, for instance, I'll all of a sudden, I call it a download. I'll be working with somebody and I can feel the download actually coming. And I'll say, oops, there's a download. And then I can say, oops, that's a compound emotional trauma from age 8. And I get the number in my head and I know it's 8. And then I confirm it using my pendulum, my dowsing to make sure that I'm getting the right age. And it, generally tells me. And then I find out, okay, which, is it in column A or column B? And, where is it? Where's the, where is the what organ or gland or tissue, is imbalanced, and then what's the emotions in there. So there's a lot of pendulum use in there, but mainly it's learning how to trust my intuition, and that's really, and with no particular idea of what the outcome is. I think that's the key to using your intuition, is that if you try to second guess it and guide it where you want it to go, it's not going to be any good. You have to absolutely trust it and just let it kind of flow, and without any expectation for what the outcome is going to be.
That tends to be very difficult for a lot of people to get used to when they're starting to tap into their intuition. That's something that I can relate to. I second guess myself quite a bit. So did you have that problem, or did you just trust yourself from the get-go?
Oh, I had that. I had to learn that because when I first started doing this 10 years ago, I really, I'd get a little niggling idea in the side of my head, inside it said, what is and I think, oh, that's just what I want it to be. And I wouldn't pay any attention to it. And I would just kind of barge ahead. But in the last 3 or 4 years since I became certified in the body code in 2016, I've started to realize that, wait a minute, that's not my idea. That is what is being given to me, and that is what my intuition. That is what actually. And now I know it's their spirit is actually communicating with me to tell me what the problem is, and once I got to that point, it hasn't been a problem since. I mean, I just but it took a lot of developing. I mean, it really did. It took years to develop it. Some people have it, right away, and I think actually everybody has it. I think everybody has that capability. It's just learning how to channel it, learning how to use it, learning how to trust it. That's the main thing, and I think that's what sort of separates a medical intuitive, somebody who can literally say they're a medical intuitive because they can get the idea, it comes straight to them, and they know to trust it.
Yeah. Say I have a hypothetical friend,
right,
who she had a mystery illness and the doctors could not pinpoint the cause of the illness, but it caused temporary paralysis. And she's working her way back from it, but she's not quite there. She's gone through physical therapy. She's gotten out of the wheelchair, but she's still stuck. And because the doctors couldn't pinpoint a diagnosis or a reason for this sudden issue, she doesn't know what to do. Like, so if I were to send her to you, what would be your first question to her?
Well, my first question would be to very tightly define what her intent is, because the intent, as I said, drives the whole process. And without she has to send her intent out to the universe, because the universe is required is bound to honor her intent, and that's why I look, I have to have that intent. And then once she's decided, okay, what, it's not just, I want to walk better. I'll say, okay, I want my legs to function better, or it depends on where the paralysis is. We'd have to determine that. And then, I mean, it's not an easy or an obvious process. And it just takes some questioning, some close questioning. And then I would come up with, okay, how does that make you uncomfortable? What is that? Where does that, why, what is it that's a problem with that for you? And then she'd say, well, I don't know. I mean, she said, well, my left leg doesn't want to work right. And so, okay, well, so then we'd narrow it down that way. And then I'd finally come down to the question. I'd ask my pendulum if that's the right question. And then we'd find out what imbalances were causing that specific part of it. In other words, it's you work on one little part at a time, it's, and I work with a lot of people who the doctors have just kind of thrown up their hands with, because medical science is fabulous, and I refer clients back to their doctors all the time if I figure out that there's something, like if I work on somebody and their heart starts coming up a lot, I'm saying, you know what, you need to go see a cardiologist. I'm not going to I want you to get that cleared first, and it's complementing anything that the medical community does, or chiropractors, or anybody, or medical health professionals, for instance. I mean, we've actually had research studies academic research studies to look to talk to people who are experiencing a variety of levels of severity in mental health systems, and they had never experienced the body code before, and maybe they talked to doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists, etc., and they just give them some medication, but these participants met with emotion code practitioners, and they subsequently reported that their symptoms were reduced in severity. This positive effect was found regardless of the intensity of their symptoms. And the authors of this study concluded that they would recommend, from a medical perspective, the emotion code as an additional offering alongside other treatments. Now, that's the key, is that this is always a complement to other treatments, and it's the treatments for anyone seeking support for mental health issues. And we need more research, of course, done to support this, but it is exciting to start seeing some real data come back that backs up the many testimonials for those who've had really quite transformative experiences using energy healing.
It's always good when science can catch up to the things that the rest of us kind of know intuitively. So, with all of the work that you've done since becoming an emotion code and body code practitioner, is there any message that you'd like to give to the listeners, that something that maybe has been a theme throughout your practice, or something that you've learned that if people just understood this, it would make things easier or their lives better?
Well, I guess I could just say that they have to understand that our bodies are entirely made up of the same energy that makes up light and literally everything in the universe. I mean, there's nothing that's really solid. Everything is made up of energy, and these energy modalities tap into this energy field, and and uh, and and it's just understanding the energy field and how it works and how it can affect our bodies, and that's really kind of I you know I'm not absolutely certain how to answer your question because it's so broad. But
Well, I think that's a good answer because it is like you say on your website, it's that you are facilitating their own body's healing. Like they have to heal themselves.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't make a scab on their bodies. I can't heal their bones for them. I can maybe move them a little bit, using energy and get them to, I've actually had, healed like broken foot bones and stuff like that, and small bones. I've actually, you can hear them go snap back into place using energy, but it's up to that person to heal themselves. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And that always is the case, even if you're working with medical science, it's not the medicine that's going to heal you. It's your body that's going to heal you.
That makes sense. If somebody were interested in having a session with you or learning more about your practice, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me by going to my website, which is theastralconnection.com. It's just like it sounds, TheAstral connection.com, and I offer anyone a 20-minute free consultation, and it generally goes on longer than 20 minutes because I can talk about it a lot because I really am passionate about what I'm doing. But I do sell my sessions. It's very important to me that people be able to measure their progress, and so I do the first session is always is going to be an evaluation where I look at, for instance, your friend your hypothetical friend who might be wanting to get over her paralysis and her problems there. I would identify, where the problems were and sort of list them all. And the main thing that the evaluation does is to look at the immune system, because the first 4 sessions are pretty much focused on building up someone's immune system, because if your immune system is not strong and working as close to 100% as possible, you're not going to be able to heal anything. I mean, nothing, that's the key of it. So I want to find out what the state of your immune system is up front, and then what particular, how well your brain is connected to your body, how well your gut is talking to your body, how well your heart is talking to your body, as well as different organs that might be imbalanced, and just little things like that. But that's the first session, and then there are 3 clearing sessions after that, and then as I said, I like to be able to measure it, so I do a 5th session, which comes with the package. It's free, essentially. It's complimentary, where I do a reevaluation, where I revisit the first evaluation and check and see what progress that you've made in the 3 clearing sessions that we do. And then I make recommendations. And then after that, people generally buy their sessions in 4 sessions at a time, and we just go on from there as long as they wish to go. So it works out very well. But people can make that decision and that choice from my website, and actually book from my website if they wish.
Okay.
But that's how they can contact me.
I will add the link to your website to the show notes. So anybody
Great.
who's listening can just
Super.
tap on that link and go straight to your website to get in touch.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I would love to talk to anybody that wants to hear about it.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. I totally appreciate it. We kind of did this on short notice, so I just am very appreciative of you taking your time tonight to have this conversation.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me.
Thanks again to Betsy for taking the time to talk with me, and thank you for listening. If you have an idea for a show topic, you can fill out the contact form at peeppodcast.com. That's PEEP podcast.com. Remember, that stands for People Experiencing Everyday Paranormal. If I can find a study about it, I'll be happy to use it. Special thanks to the listeners who have submitted topic ideas. Also, if you are interested in sharing your own personal stories of paranormal experiences, I'd love to have you on the show. It can be as anonymous as you'd like. You can keep up with the show on its Facebook page, facebook.com/peeppodcast. We also have a group linked from that page in case you're interested in joining the conversation. If you like the podcast, please give it some rating love on your favorite podcast app, share it with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Doing so will help the podcast be found by others. Special thanks to everyone who has given the show some love. I really do appreciate it. If you're interested in supporting the show financially, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Nicole Maroc. The Patreon account still exists, but Buy Me a Coffee does not require a monthly commitment. All donations will be received with extreme gratitude. No matter how you support the show, listening, telling others about it, financial assistance, or any other way, I truly appreciate you being here. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe and be well.